10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 180. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 180 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. So glad to have you here. If you're brand new to the show, just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Nick Manella. I'm the creator and host of this show, and we'll be leading you through about a 10-minute guided jazz lesson with a short exercise to give you some ideas to practice this week or simply to file away in your practice folder and come back to at some other point. And we do that every single week on this show. We hit you with a new episode every Friday so that there is never going to be an excuse for you not to be practicing. We always want you to have something going on so that you're continuously improving your playing as an improviser and a jazz musician. So if you want to get full benefit out of these episodes, I wanted to let you know about our Patreon site where you can actually get a PDF download for every single episode that we've ever done, which really is kind of 80% of the material, right? You want to be able to file this stuff away, go back to it, and practice it whenever you want. So in order to do that, go over to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners, get yourself signed up. It only costs you $3 a month to support the show and get your hands on all the materials that we have ever put out with this show. So I wanted to give a quick shout out to our new Patreon members. Thank you to Jesus, thank you to Jeremias, Michael, Drew, and Lemuel. Thank you guys so much for signing up to show your support, keep the podcast going, and get all of the benefits that you possibly can and make yourself a better musician. Thank you to them. Thank you to everybody else over there. Over 250 members that are supporting us each and every month. All right, let's jump into today's episode. So this week is another one of our Lick of the Month episodes that people seem to enjoy so much. But this time we're going to do something different. I'm always trying to think of different ways to present kind of the same material to you, if that makes sense. And I think that's how you should be thinking in your practice routine, right? Always come at old material from a new angle and see what you can do with it. See how you can turn it into something new and inventive. And this week, I thought instead of just like going through a transcription or listening to a solo and taking a lick and, trying to incorporate it into our playing, which is what we normally do, which is, very important. But this week, what I wanted to do is actually talk about looking towards tunes, actual melodies for vocabulary and for information that we can actually use in our solos. And this has been a long-standing tradition in jazz. You'll hear a lot of your favorite jazz musicians in their solos quoting other tunes. And we're going to go towards somebody who's an absolute goldmine of vocabulary, and that person is Charlie Parker. I mean, his tunes are absolute gold mines of vocabulary. I mean, as you know, he basically invented bebop. So if we look at his tunes, they're almost like solos in a lot of ways. But there's many, many, many things in these melodies that we can take and we can incorporate into different aspects of our playing. And before we jump into the actual lick this week, I want to talk about how important it is to learn Charlie Parker tunes. They are so important in so many different ways. They're important for technique. They're important for our rhythmic concept. They're important for vocabulary, like we're going to talk about today. And they're really important for our ears. So if you don't know many Charlie Parker tunes, that's my first tip for you this week. Go and start learning and memorizing Charlie Parker's melodies. That in itself is going to give you a lot to work off of. And it's great to know these tunes. After all these years, people still call these tunes at gigs and jam sessions all the time, and for good reason, because they're some of the hippest tunes ever written. So if you want to be a jazz musician and you want to really know your stuff, you've got to know at least some of the more popular Charlie Parker tunes. You got to have them memorized. So keep that in mind. That could be a bigger assignment or a bigger goal than just on this show. Start learning your Charlie Parker stuff. But today we're going to look at one of my favorite lines over a Charlie Parker tune. This is over Anthropology, and it's the lick at the end, the closing lick of the tune. And what he's doing is he's playing over this half-step chord progression that moves down by half steps using minor seventh chords. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at what makes this line tick, and then we're going to actually change it so that we can use it over some other places in other tunes. We're going to make a slight tweak to it and talk about kind of how genius this line is so that you can start hearing it turn up in other places. Okay, so at the end of the tune, he plays this lick. I'm going to play it for you right now, and then we're going to talk about the structure of it. Here we go. One more time. So he uses this lick to close out the tune Anthropology. And the reason why I love it so much is that it perfectly outlines the chords. And you can hear that I did not play the full chord with my left hand. And the reason is because I don't need to, because the actual melodic line is perfectly outlining the harmony that's going on. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at our PDF together, and we'll kind of figure out what's going on here. So if you look at the first half of the first measure, he's going up a B minor 7 chord, and then he's coming back to the third, and it's really just a B minor triad, not even with the 7th. Then what he does is he jumps up to the 5th of a B flat minor 7 chord, and he comes right down that. So 5, flat 3, 1, flat 7. That's going to lead him by half step perfectly into an A minor triad, where he's going to do exactly the same thing, 1, 3, 5, 3. And then he's going to go to an A flat minor 7 chord and come right down that starting on the 5th. So 5, 3, 1, 7. And he's going to come right down that one. Then he's going to go up to the resolution point, which is a G major 7 chord, the end of the tune, and he's going to resolve it right to the root by way of a half step. So this is pretty cool. He's just outlining these descending minor chords, going down by half step, and eventually getting to the 1 chord, which is the resolution point of the whole tune. Check it out one more time. Now that we've talked about it, listen to it one more time, and you can really hear those descending chords. So there you go. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take that and we're going to slightly tweak it, because it actually presents us with this really cool opportunity to use some very cool techniques. And that technique would be the Tritone Sub. And that's really what he's basing this off of. So if we think about in the key of G what a B minor chord is, it's the 3, right? Now in G, if we think about what A minor is, that's the 2. So in the first measure of the lick, it's starting on the 3 chord. And in the second measure of the lick, it's starting on the 2 chord. So we can be reasonably sure that he's doing something with one of the most traditional and important chord progressions in jazz history, which is the 3-6-2-5-1 progression. We've talked about that on the show. So we could be reasonably sure that he's using that as his model. But if we look at the chords in the second halves of the measures, we understand that it's not a 6 and it's not a 5. So what's he doing? Well, let's think about this for a second. Instead of having an E7 chord in the second half of measure 1, which would be the 6 chord, now what he's doing is he has a B flat chord. Now let's forget about the fact that it's minor. So if we had an E7 chord and instead we played B flat over it, what is that? Well, that's the tritone substitution of E7. So, okay, now we're starting to get this. Let's see if that goes for the second measure as well. So in the second measure, if we had the 5 chord in the second half, it would be D7, but instead we see an A flat chord. Okay, so that's definitely a tritone substitution yet again. So what we're going to do is we are going to take this line and we're just going to tweak it. We're going to change one note in each measure to change it from a minor 7th chord to just a regular dominant 7th chord. So in the first measure, we're going to take this and we're going to replace the D flat on the and of 3 with a D natural. And then in the second chord, we're going to take the B or the C flat in the on beat 3 and we're going to turn that into a C. So now we're effectively making this chord progression B minor 7 to B flat 7, A minor 7 to A flat 7, and now we have our tritone substitutions. So now, if we were to actually take this lick and put it over a 3-6-2-5-1 progression, like we find in so many tunes, like let's use rhythm changes for an example, we see that 3-6-2-5-1 all over the place, and we were to now put this line over it, now we get this really cool 8th note line that demonstrates perfectly our tritone substitutions. So let's check out what it sounds like with the different roots. So now I'm going to actually be playing 3-6-2-5-1 with my left hand, and I'm going to use our second example on our PDF sheet, which is our altered line, to fit the tritone substitution over it. Let's see if it sounds interesting, if we like it or not. Let's try that one more time. Do you hear all the tension that's in there? Now that really is that tritone substitution sound. And basically, Charlie Parker taught us how to use a tritone sub. I love that. With the new chords underneath, with the E7 and the D7, now we get all of that wonderful tension. Check it out again. Such a great sound. So now we can take that. We didn't have to dig through any transcriptions. We didn't have to, transcribe anything. And we have this really beautiful lick to play over a variety of different places. So I want you to try this. I want you to try maybe working on this one, making sure you understand what's going on with everything I've presented for you today. And then I maybe want you to think about some other tunes that you know. Maybe some bebop-based tunes. Those tend to be, in my mind, the best place to find some vocabulary, but it could be any tune. And believe me, there are hundreds of these out there. You just have to go out and work a little bit to find them, and then figure out where you can transfer those lines to in other tunes that you're soloing over. So maybe try that. Find me one other place that you have found a lick that is useful that you could put over another tune. And if you want to let us know over on the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Community Facebook group, that's a great place where maybe we can start compiling some of these tunes that we know and like and that we're going to take a little bit of vocabulary from. That would be a great kind of crowdsourced project for us. I'll kick it off over there by posting a few other tunes that I have used in the past to develop some vocabulary. You can also ask me any questions that you might have over at that Facebook group. That's a great place to get in touch with me. I'm always keeping my eye on the posts over there and talking to people. So make sure you get in touch. Definitely don't hesitate to do that. All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed. Remember, if you want to get the PDF to this particular episode, make sure you jump on 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners, and that will take you over where you can sign up and show your support. Only $3 a month. All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, and thanks so much for tuning in each and every week. It means the world to me, and hopefully these episodes are useful after all this time. All right, we'll talk to you soon. Have a great weekend. Bye.